Do you notice anything
Very.
different? Yeah? Ho, ho, ho.
When a relationship unfolds in front of millions of viewers, people often assume they know the whole story. Every smile on camera, every shared joke, and every affectionate glance can create the impression that life behind the scenes is just as perfect. For years, that was exactly how audiences viewed Eamonn Holmes and Ruth Langsford. They weren't simply television presenters. They represented stability, familiarity, and the kind of partnership that seemed capable of surviving the pressures of fame. Their chemistry felt genuine because for a long time it was. But as history has shown time and time again, even the strongest public image can conceal private struggles that only those closest to the situation truly understand. The announcement of their separation came as a genuine surprise to many viewers. After more than 2 decades together and 14 years of marriage, the news marked the end of one of British television's most recognizable relationships. Headlines appeared almost overnight, social media exploded with opinions, and countless theories began circulating. Some believed work pressures had driven them apart. Others pointed to Eamonn's ongoing health struggles, while many simply wondered how a couple who appeared so comfortable together could reach such an unexpected crossroads. 4 months following the announcement, both Eamonn and Ruth handled the situation with remarkable restraint. Rather than fueling endless speculation, they avoided dramatic public confrontations. Official statements remained respectful and measured, emphasizing that the separation was a private matter and asking for understanding during what was undoubtedly a difficult period for both families. In an era where celebrity breakups often become public battles, their approach stood out for its dignity. Yet silence has a curious way of encouraging speculation. When one side says very little, others often rush to fill the gaps with assumptions. Television panels debated the breakup. Entertainment columns analyzed every public appearance. Even the smallest gesture, a photograph, a social media post, or a brief interview, was examined for hidden meaning. The public wanted answers, but relationships rarely end because of one single event. More often, they evolve gradually through years of changing circumstances, personal struggles, and emotional distance. To understand why this story attracted so much attention, it's important to look back long before the separation itself. Eamonn Holmes had already established himself as one of Britain's most recognizable broadcasters decades before he met Ruth Langsford. Born in Belfast, Northern Ireland, he developed an interest in journalism at a young age. Unlike many television personalities who chase fame, Eamonn built his reputation through consistency. Early in his career, he worked in regional broadcasting, learning every aspect of live television before eventually moving onto national screens. Morning television demands a unique combination of professionalism and personality. Presenters must appear energetic before sunrise while navigating breaking news, interviews, and unexpected live moments. Eamonn excelled because audiences trusted him. His conversational style made viewers feel as though they were starting the day with a familiar friend rather than simply watching another television host. As his career expanded, so did his reputation. Programs such as GMTV and Later This Morning transformed him into a household name. He became known for asking direct questions while maintaining warmth and humor. Colleagues frequently described him as someone who understood live broadcasting better than almost anyone else in the industry. Years of experience had taught him how to remain calm even when everything around him appeared unpredictable. Ruth Langsford was building an impressive career of her own. Calm, approachable, and highly professional, she earned the respect of viewers through years of consistent work in daytime television. Unlike personalities who relied on controversy for attention, Ruth developed a reputation based on reliability. She connected naturally with audiences, making complicated conversations feel accessible without ever appearing forced. When Eamonn and Ruth eventually began appearing together on television, audiences noticed something different almost immediately. Their conversations felt effortless. They teased one another with the ease that only genuine familiarity creates. Instead of performing for the cameras, they seemed simply to be themselves. That authenticity became one of their greatest strengths. Their personal relationship had actually begun years before many viewers realized. Rather than rushing into public attention, they kept their romance relatively private during its early stages. Both understood the intense scrutiny that public figures face, particularly when relationships become media headlines. Protecting their personal lives allowed them to build a foundation away from constant public judgment. As the years passed, that foundation appeared to grow stronger. The couple welcomed their son, Jack, creating a family while simultaneously balancing demanding television careers. They eventually married, and together they became one of Britain's favorite presenting teams. Their success extended beyond individual television programs into documentaries, lifestyle shows, and special projects that showcased both their personalities and their relationship. To millions of viewers, they represented something increasingly rare in the entertainment industry, a long-lasting marriage that seemed built on friendship as much as romance. While other celebrity relationships frequently collapsed under media pressure, Eamonn and Ruth continued presenting together year after year. Their partnership became part of their professional identity, making it almost impossible to imagine one without the other. However, life rarely follows the image presented on television. Behind every live broadcast existed countless unseen realities. Television viewers watched only a few carefully produced hours each week. They didn't witness exhausting production schedules, long travel days, family responsibilities, or the physical and emotional demands that accompany careers in broadcasting. Like every couple, Eamonn and Ruth faced challenges that cameras never captured. Then another obstacle entered their lives, one that neither ratings nor popularity could solve. Over the past several years, Eamonn began speaking publicly about serious health problems that dramatically changed his daily life. Chronic back pain gradually became one of the biggest battles he had ever faced. What initially seemed like ordinary discomfort developed into persistent mobility issues that required extensive medical treatment. Multiple procedures, rehabilitation sessions, and lengthy recoveries followed, each bringing fresh hope but also new frustrations. For someone accustomed to working at an energetic pace, the adjustment proved enormous. Simple activities that most people take for granted suddenly became difficult. Walking unaided was no longer guaranteed. Long periods of standing became painful. Recovery demanded patience, determination, and significant support from family members. Throughout those difficult years, Ruth frequently spoke about encouraging Eamonn during his rehabilitation. Publicly, she expressed hope that each new treatment would bring improvement. Viewers admired her commitment, recognizing that serious illness affects not only the patient but also everyone close to them. Long-term health challenges can reshape routines, responsibilities, and emotional dynamics in ways that outsiders rarely appreciate. While audiences continued seeing familiar smiles on television, life away from the cameras was becoming increasingly complicated. And as professional changes began unfolding alongside ongoing health struggles, the pressure on one of Britain's most recognizable couples quietly continued to grow. As Eamonn Holmes continued battling serious health issues, another major change was unfolding in his professional life. For decades, he had been one of the most familiar faces on British morning television, but the broadcasting landscape was evolving. Networks refreshed their programming, audiences changed their viewing habits, and presenters who had once seemed permanent fixtures suddenly found themselves facing unexpected transitions. For anyone who has spent a lifetime in television, career changes can be deeply personal. Broadcasting isn't simply another job. Presenters become part of viewers' daily routines, and those routines often last for years. Leaving a long-running program can feel like losing a second home. It also means adapting to a completely different schedule, new colleagues, and new expectations. Eamonn eventually began a new chapter with GB News, embracing a different broadcasting environment while continuing to do what he loved most, live television. He spoke positively about the opportunity, explaining that he enjoyed discussing current affairs in a more open format. Professionally, it represented a fresh start. Ruth, meanwhile, continued her own successful career with ITV, remaining a familiar face on daytime television. Although both continued working in broadcasting, they were no longer sharing the same professional path every day. For many years, their careers had run almost side by side. Now they were developing independently. For some couples, Different career paths strengthen a relationship by allowing each person greater independence. For others, they create new routines that gradually reduce the amount of time spent together. Every relationship responds differently, and only those inside it truly understand the impact. Publicly, neither Eamonn nor Ruth suggested that work alone caused the breakdown of their marriage. In fact, both maintained respectful silence about many private details. That restraint is important to remember because countless headlines attempted to reduce a decades-long relationship into one simple explanation. Real life is rarely that straightforward. A marriage that lasts more than 20 years experiences countless seasons. There are moments of celebration, periods of uncertainty, personal growth, family responsibilities, career ambitions, disappointments, illnesses, and unexpected changes. None of those experiences exist in isolation. They overlap, influencing one another in ways that outsiders cannot fully appreciate. By the time news of the separation became public, both had already experienced years of significant change. Eamonn's ongoing rehabilitation remained one of the biggest challenges of his life. He spoke openly about how frustrating limited mobility had become. Someone who once moved effortlessly through busy television studios now relied on walking aids during many public appearances. Rehabilitation became part of his daily routine rather than a temporary inconvenience. In interviews, he described the emotional impact as honestly as the physical pain. Losing independence, even temporarily, can affect confidence in profound ways. Activities that once required no thought suddenly demanded planning, assistance, and patience. Those experiences often reshape how people view themselves. Many viewers admired his willingness to discuss those struggles publicly. Rather than pretending everything was fine, he acknowledged the reality of living with chronic pain. His honesty resonated with people facing similar medical challenges, reminding them that recovery is rarely a straight line. Yet, physical recovery often brings emotional challenges as well. Medical experts frequently note that long-term illness affects entire households. Family members become caregivers, routines change dramatically, and emotional exhaustion can quietly accumulate over months or even years. None of that automatically causes relationships to fail, but it can place extraordinary pressure on even the strongest partnerships. Following the announcement of the separation, media coverage intensified dramatically. Newspaper headlines competed for attention with increasingly dramatic language. Television commentators debated what had happened. Online discussions multiplied daily, with countless theories appearing across social media. Some stories focused on career differences. Others emphasized health struggles. Still others suggested entirely different explanations. The reality, however, remained remarkably consistent. Neither Eamonn nor Ruth publicly engaged in detailed accusations against one another. That silence frustrated some observers, but it also reflected a certain level of maturity. Instead of turning private pain into public entertainment, both largely chose discretion. Eventually, Ruth spoke openly about the emotional difficulty of ending such a long relationship. She acknowledged that divorce is never easy, especially when it follows decades spent building a life together. Rather than expressing anger, she discussed acceptance, recognizing that although the situation was painful, life had to continue. Her comments struck many people because they reflected an experience shared by countless families outside the spotlight. Sometimes relationships simply reach a point where continuing becomes more difficult than moving forward separately. Acceptance does not erase sadness. It simply creates room for healing. Eamonn's public comments took a somewhat different tone. Instead of focusing on blame, he reflected on balance. Looking back over decades of broadcasting, he acknowledged that careers can consume enormous amounts of time and energy. Live television demands early mornings, unpredictable schedules, constant preparation, and long hours away from home. Those demands can gradually reshape family life without anyone fully realizing it. His reflections suggested that, if given another opportunity, achieving a healthier balance between professional commitments and personal relationships might have been one of the lessons he wished he had learned earlier. That admission attracted widespread attention because it wasn't sensational. There were no dramatic accusations, no explosive revelations. No attempt to rewrite history. Instead, there was something much quieter, a recognition that success in one area of life does not automatically guarantee happiness in another. It was the kind of reflection many people reach only after significant life changes force them to look backward. As both Eamonn and Ruth gradually adjusted to separate lives, the public naturally became curious about what came next. Would they remain friends? Would they continue speaking publicly about one another? Could two people whose identities had become so closely connected eventually create entirely separate futures? Those questions remained unanswered for quite some time. But while viewers focused primarily on the end of the marriage, another chapter of Eamonn's personal journey was